Hey everybody, welcome to episode 3 of Projectile Dysfunction. I'm your co-host, Cael Voltek, and on my left is my other co-host, Bigga Moon Pie. Hey Bigga.
Yeah, baby.
How's your week been?
Well, it's actually been busy. I've been working a lot, trying to get some time to sit down with you and just, missing the face to face. But you gotta pay those bills.
Gotta pay the bills. Yep, been working myself. Finally broke down, and my big news this week is I went ahead and decided to upgrade my hottest
Ooh,
system, so got it on order. We'll see how it connects up. I got the a printer on standby to make me some generic mounting plates, but we'll see. Well, maybe we'll talk about it later on
yeah, we
in a
all
future
we
show.
have uh, uh, an unspoken competition all the time, and Kale
Yes.
has to one up me no matter what he
Oh,
does. So
never.
what he
That's
does
not.
is he lets me buy two joysticks, and
Mhm.
then he's got to get two nicer ones to one up me. So now
I, you know,
maybe I'm gonna fly this game with three joysticks. I don't know. I gotta figure out
do you
something.
have do you have a third appendage that you can fly?
Well, I
Bigga.
guess
The name is
maybe my
Bigga.
track IR could be the third
That
input
could be a third
device.
one. Well, I tell you what, I was looking at the system you got. You've got the VKB Gladiators, right? And two joysticks. You got the left hand for the throttle. It's a sweet setup. It's very
It is
nice.
really it's so much fun. It's
Yeah,
so
and
much.
I decided to switch it up just a little bit, and I like less buttons on my fighting stick hand on my right hand, and I went with a regular Hodis on the left. So I ended up with the VKB gunfighter and Stex. So I think I do it so that we have different equipment that we can show our opinions
I
on.
actually
There's
need to
no
plan
one upping.
a trip up to where you're at so I can test those things out because they actually look really cool.
Yeah,
Like I
yeah.
like it, and it's actually funny. I was just remapping a lot of my joysticks today, and funnily enough, I also use a gamepad for my FPS play, and it was. I couldn't for like 20 minutes. I was like, "Why isn't this working?" And because it was looking at that like a joystick. So I did, in
Yeah.
fact, have three joystick functions, and that one was one, my left stick was two, and my right stick was three. And so when I figured out which one was which, then they finally all mapped and they stopped inverting and flying me left when I was trying to go right.
Yeah.
So it's very nice.
Yes. Well, and then so we'll also do a shameless plug here. So what you were working on is you did your latest short, cleanup, Isle Centurion,
Custodian,
custodian.
you
Sorry,
know,
cleanup Isle
because a
custodian.
custodian is a man with a mop and a bucket
That's
and an
right.
aim about as well as both of us, right?
That's right. So if you get a chance, check out the shorts channels. We can do a couple of shorts. Big has been killing it, I think, on
I know I have
in
to
the
fight
shorts area.
myself to not talk in the shorts voice to be like, today on projectile dysfunction.
Okay, don't ruin it. Don't ruin
No,
it.
no,
They're not,
no.
let them
I
pay
just,
for it on the shorts.
I got to have my natural voice and then my big dog voice. I don't
Right.
know.
Right. And then what voice are you gonna use for the show today?
Well, no, this is just natural. This is
Oh, just
just me.
natural voice.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
All right, good to
yeah.
know.
Big dog is. I guess I'm big dog voice, bigger dog voice, right?
Bigger dog voice. There you
Yeah,
go. That's much
yeah.
better. All right, so this is gonna be a so before we get started, we're gonna have to remember in our last episode we talked about it. I'm gonna go ahead and say, please remember to buckle up when it comes to our
Oh,
episodes.
buckle up.
It's important to the channel, which is subscribe and like. Thank you very much. All right, so let's move on. Today, like I said, it's going to be a long form. Forewarning, we're going to go. We'll see how long this is. Talk a little bit about monetization and funding of games that we're seeing today, and that we've seen in the past. Uh, there's some turmoil. Anybody that's gaming in the gaming industry right now, you're seeing a lot of layoffs. You're seeing where we saw some consolidations in the past. You're seeing some game studios be shifted around. Um, Game pricing, it's forever creeping up. I don't know what the best model is. I think they've tried several different models, and I don't know if there's a right answer or not. But we're going to talk about a few of these here. And Bigga came up with 4 different sales models that he wants to kind of bring up, and we're going to talk about some different games on those models. Go ahead, Bigga. What's those different sales models?
Well, I was just thinking about the games that we played, and we can look at, like we said, basic four. We've got just straight up, we sell the game copies. So a game that makes money off selling its game copies, that's it. Then you got another model, which is games that sell in game assets. Star Citizen maybe wasn't this in the beginning, but it for sure is now a game that sells in-game assets. You've got the subscription model, and then you've got the soft subscription model, also known as freemium. And we've seen a lot of different games. Some do really well, some not do really well. And I think we're going to talk about how they're doing, how that's going to apply to Star Citizen today, and just what we like to see and what we think makes a game successful. Because it really, if they're making money on it, then the game is going to continue and the content is going to be better.
Right. So I'm gonna start out a little bit of order that we have on our show note sheet here, but I'm gonna jump to number two. So kind of the first one that up till that time, I think a lot of us were playing. Eve is the exception. Eve was, subscription based, has been
Yeah.
subscription based. I think we could probably do an entire episode on Eve monetization with going from subscription to free to play and the effect it had on that game. We won't do that now, but the game that we talked about in the first episode was MechWarrior Online. We played a lot of MechWarrior, and up until then, I could say that a lot of games I played were a lot of solo gaming, like I said, but a lot of it was you pay once and done. Right? You bought the game and you played, and you might have some multiplayer to it, but that was pretty much it.
Right.
You just played some multiplayer. That's what we had historically through either Spynet or other online matchmakers that you would play. MechWarrior Online back in October of 2012 is when it did the Founders Edition before it went into open beta. It raised about $5 million. I missed it by one day, so that's always a fun
I
story to
thought I thought that you were
talk about.
a backer from the beginning. No.
No, on the 15th of October, obviously, I jumped into play. I was back and forth and back and forth, and I decided, you know what, I'm gonna go ahead and do a Founders Pack. And I signed into the launcher and it said you could buy a Founders Pack right here. So I clicked it and it took me to the page and then it would error out. It wouldn't let me go to the Founders
Oh.
page. So I filed a support ticket and basically the support ticket was, well, why'd you wait so long? It's not available anymore. It was an error in the
So
launcher.
you never had the Founders Atlas?
I never had Founders.
Take out the
Nope.
Founders Atlas, boys.
It's all right. I'm still here. I'm all
Ah,
right.
right.
I don't feel any less about myself because I didn't have a Founders package.
I
But
felt less about you 5, 6 years ago,
that's
but
good.
now I don't.
Now I'm okay.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. And then
I also came late to the game, so I can't say that I was founder to anything.
oh,
I
you
don't
weren't
even know
Founders
how you
either?
guys hear about these games to get in on the first wave because I've
Okay.
never been in on the first wave of anything.
Okay. Well, I thought you were Founder.
No, I
Anyway,
wasn't. No, I was
good.
way late.
All right.
I
So,
didn't pay for it until it was a fully playable game.
you didn't come in until after the release? You didn't play in beta at all?
I might have played at the end of beta.
Okay. So, August of 2013 is the date that they threw out. That seems shorter, but verify your sources. Maybe I'll do that later. Um, the but they went from, they did the actual release. And so, at that point, right, it was up through beta. You could do um uh premium. You bought premium time as a free to play, and you did premium time, and the premium time gave you a 50% payout on experience and mech credits. So they did that for a long time. For those that don't know, the background of MechWarrior Online is it was done by PGI, Piranha Games, and it was done through a agreement they had with the Canadian government, and they set up a secondary group called IGP, which is, wait for it, PGI backwards. And they were responsible for doing the publishing, and they got into this method of generating funds by doing mech packs. So it's a good, if you know anything about the BattleTech and MechWarrior IP, right? There's a lot of mechs, and you talk to players, they have favorite mechs. There's specific mechs that they love and they want to play, and they brought out the four beginning mechs. I should have looked this up. The Atlas,
The Jenner,
the
the
Jenner,
Hunchback,
the Hunchback,
and what was the heavy? The Catapult.
maybe.
I think it was the
So
Catapult.
yeah, we'll check that out. So they came out with the four, but
Not a
everybody,
founder, but a fan. Not a
yes,
founder, but a fan.
both start with F. So they were everybody knew they were going to do more mechs, and so IGP did these mech packs, and they started selling mechs, and that was the way they would raise some funds. So you had premium time plus the mech packs. And I would say in general, it was looked upon somewhat favorably in the beginning because people wanted their mechs. So they would buy mech packs, they get some premium time, they get the mechs. So this goes on for a while and it becomes kind of a sore talking point because they're just going through these mech packs. It's like the only way to make money in this game.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so selling these packs, I guess you could equate it to modern DLC, right? They'd come out with a
Yeah.
new pack and you'd buy it and it would keep them going.
Because if I look at it, that's the first game that I think I played that heavily monetized through in-game asset sales. And we're
Mhm.
talking about microtransactions because the most expensive mechs were $500. So a lot of guys, well, they're critical of Star Citizen being expensive, but this was, uh, 15 years ago, well, maybe not, 12 years ago, and very expensive for some in-game content that hadn't been finished yet, like the golden clan mechs. Were on sale before they were done, and we've all seen that before. And I think that where it started to go south for me, and the hard thing is like you have these subscription games, and they're pootering along with their subscription, and they know what they're going to get. They know how many subscribers they have, but then they can get this injection of cash if they sell this. Oh well, here is a in-game asset pack, so they can make 10 times what their subscription is in a month because now they're selling this, and it motivates them to use all their development assets to just make, and in this case, more robots to sell in their game. And they
Mhm.
kind of only start making more robots. So we don't see more game modes. We don't see more maps to play on. We don't see more content. The only content that we're seeing is stuff that they want to sell us in the form of a robot.
Right, and that became a huge sticking point for a lot of players in that the maps, uh, uh, were fine when they first came out, and then it became a sticking point because they weren't changing the maps. The maps they created were there was a lot of critiquing for the maps because they favored a choke point type of map system. They wanted people to fight, they wanted to engage certain things, and there was a lot, and rightfully so. I thought people had an opinion that there was more to the game than just fighting. You want to fight ultimately, but you had light mechs. You want
Yeah.
scouting.
Yep.
There's all these different aspects to it, and they were forcing choke points, and then they kept changing, and then they changed the maps a little bit,
Yeah.
and it just wasn't conducive. I know that I remember back there was a lot of heartache over that. So you're right. So the main content becomes or fundraising content becomes selling mech packs. So IGP finally ends up going away, and it is declared that the shackles had been lifted, that now PGI could do what they wanted to do and make the game that they want to make because they're no longer under this stranglehold or whatever of IGP. And within the year, what did they do?
Well, was that around the time of the Phoenix mechs?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they
Well,
start releasing mech packs.
I would say they just started making more mech packs,
Oh, they
right?
embraced it. They
And
embraced it
they did not.
wholeheartedly.
In the Everyone was very hopeful for like a faction warfare. If you're a BattleTech fan, it's all about the houses fighting each other, the clans fighting the houses, territory control, taking over planets to get factories. It's not just a bloodbath. There's strategery to where you want to attack and what you want to do. And they really put this carrot out there of like, well, we're going to have factional warfare. So we're going to sell you these Phoenix mechs that are going to give you a percentage to factional reputations,
Mhm.
and they're the only ones that are going to do this. And here you go and buy your Phoenix packs, and the mechs were a lot of fun. Like the mechs themselves were beautiful. The art looked good. The
Yeah.
movements looked good.
Yep.
The weapons firing, the weapon placements, a lot of it was good, but there was no real factional warfare that came in, and then there was really no reason to get factional reputation. And I think that the game now even doesn't have these things that they were
No.
selling in these mech packs 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's the hard thing is they were getting all their money by selling mech packs, but not by making more game content.
Yeah. No,
And
go ahead.
no, yeah, no, I was just saying that like that's the pitfall I think in the selling in-game assets is they're not motivated financially to make gameplay that we like, you know. So as if you have a strict, like Eve was a strict uh, subscription based model, and they were motivated for year after year, probably 8 or 9 years before they went free to play or quote unquote free to play, to make content that people wanted to engage with to keep paying their subscription. WoW was the
Right.
same thing. Let's make content that people want to engage with so they keep paying their subscription. And in some ways, I think that that made Eve and World of Warcraft the powerhouses that they are in multiplayer online games now, is that they just had the funding the whole time. They had the financial, developers had the financial incentive to keep making content that was engaging, and it's really has done. And I think that I'm getting off topic, but like Fortnite really blew everybody out of the water with microtransactions, and these
Right.
these developers were like, well, look at how much money Fortnite's
Well,
making. Like, how can we not have microtransactions?
yeah. So let's before we get down the microtransaction route, if we decide
Yeah,
to go down there, let me pull it back just a bit
pull it back.
because what you're saying, and I agree with, is that when you when your primary source of income becomes selling the in-game asset, you lose focus on creating content. The stuff
Absolutely.
and they gave up on the promises, the pillars, remember the 4 pillars,
Yep.
the things they were going to do. Every battle was gonna matter. Again, in this big faction warfare scenario that they gave to us. So, but at the end of the day, the money came in from the mech pack. The money did not come in from the players playing the game.
Right.
And so they became
Absolutely.
beholden to the mech pack, and that never changed. And it really, in hindsight, became the slow death, I think, of the mech warrior that we wanted into what it became. And to be fair, I'm not sure how much you bought.
Lots of
I
substantial amount.
I paid
Substantial.
I bought a lot of packs, and I still
Yep.
have I signed in the other day just to check,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think I still have 9 months of premium time.
Yeah. I have a
I've
year and a
got
half
yeah,
because I never
I've
really
yeah,
activated it,
ton of
and you
credits.
got it with all the packs you were.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just it was so that became a problem
And
there.
I
So
was so into that game that I would buy, like, it was Christmas gifts. I'd be like, buy mech packs for friends,
yeah.
for Lancer buddies. I'm like, oh yeah, you want to.
Well,
It
we
was
bought
fun. Like it was a lot of fun, but it's sad that it could have been so much.
yeah. We had a
It could have been so much.
we had a graphic designer in APOC that was doing some logos for us, and he's like, I'm like, "What do you want? I'll send you give me a PayPal, give me something, I'll send you some money." He's like, "Nah, how about a mech pack?" I'm like, "Which one do you want?" And so that's we paid him in mech packs to do
Yeah,
some stuff for us. It
he
was
did
it
some
was it
great.
was great. It
He
was
did some
fun.
great APOC logos. Those
Yeah,
were awesome.
yeah. So then,
We got to send him a spaceship. We'll write that down in the notes. We got to send him a spaceship.
if we can find him.
Get
I don't know
some
where he went.
projectiles. Yeah, yeah,
South Africa. I don't know if we
yeah.
can
I
find
know.
him. Uh, so we move on and we go to, Escape from Tarkov, right? Another game now and in the headlines in this last week. Uh,
Hmm?
so released in July of 2017. The top tier that you could purchase at the time was Edge of Darkness. It's
Right.
100 bucks, 100 bucks. And but that was it, right? It was a
Yeah.
copy-based
So
sales model.
sales copy of the game.
Yep.
Where you pay for a
And
download, the right to download the game and play it.
yep. And so they've been carrying on that way for a while.
And very, very, very successful. And they have, in a maybe 2 or 3 fewer years than Star Citizen, made the same about 800 million mark.
Really?
Yes, yeah, they're from
I
six to
haven't
eight
seen
hundred
that.
million. Yeah, because they in I was just looking at it. They made 125 million in 2022. So in one year they made 125 million Tarkov.
I didn't
So
realize that.
they're just by selling $100 copies of the game, they're doing really well. They're probably the most popular first person shooter for the last 4 years. I mean,
Right.
and maybe Call of Duty you could say, but Tarkov is
Yeah. So what I mean, and we've gone through several wipes. They've done a lot of balancing, a lot of changes to the game. There's a lot of criticism of the game. I was going through as I knew we were gonna kind of talk about this for this episode, and I was with the news that came out and looking through, and there's a lot of bitter people,
you mean
just in the
specifically
game.
change?
No, just in the game itself, right?
Okay.
Like they
Well,
haven't
yeah.
the developers
Right.
haven't done enough to stop cheaters. That you're playing a game where uh, people get on maps and they're waiting, and you pop in, you spawn, and you get sniped. It's like the game sucks. So there's that. But in this last week, now they have what they're calling the Unheard Edition for $250. If you're just in, for if you and I wanted to do it,
Right.
because you're Edge of Darkness, right?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
So we have to pay $100 to upgrade to this, and
Upgrade to it.
it's got new game modes that you can only get if you have this new edition,
Do you
these
have it
new
right there?
player
What?
versus environment.
Okay.
You can only play it if you have that edition.
Interesting.
And yeah, and you
It's
can
PVE. It's a PVE mode. You only get this
it's a
PVE mode.
PvE mode that you only get if you pay for it. And then I was also reading that if you're with fence, that if you have at least level 6 with fence, then
Okay. Yeah.
the scavs
For
won't shoot
scav
you.
reputation. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, the scavs won't shoot you.
Yep.
So it's cut. So
Only with that. Only if
only
you
with
buy
this
that.
pack. Only if you have this pack.
Hmm. Okay.
So
Wow.
so what I mean, you said they made that kind of money
Yeah.
selling
Well,
per on a per copy basis. What would motivate them
I know
to go
exactly.
to a 250?
I know exactly what did.
Okay.
And I'm gonna tie this into Star Citizen too, because this is the biggest indicator for Squadron 42 has to have a good release. It has to have a good release, or it's going to be bad news. Because I want to make the comparison. They made a lot of money on Tarkov. They had a great engine. They wrote their own engine. They had a great environment. They had their own lore. They were making YouTube videos that just were kind of little shorts and skits on just the lore of Tarkov. So they took that money and started developing a standalone secondary game called Arena. Um, and everybody was super hyped about Arena. Did you play it? Because you probably got it with.
Never even heard of it.
Yeah. Well, no. So Arena is it's another game. It's a smaller map. It's kind of like deathmatch stuff, and you score points, you rank up, you get better gear. I think they said, I haven't played it a whole lot either, but you can find some gear in the main game that you can then use in the arena game. But it flopped. It
Really?
came out bad reviews. Diehard people didn't like it. Sales were not very good, and they are hurting badly. And they previously to this, they just opened up a quote unquote microtransaction where you could buy a couple more slots in your stash and a
Right.
few other things.
Right.
And people were mad about that. But I'm like, dude, if you want to buy more, like you got to let these guys make money. So if they sell a couple slots in the stash, it's not going to
Well,
change
yeah, and that's the other thing
anything.
too. That's the other thing
Yeah,
too. This pack comes with a larger
larger
slot.
stash.
Yeah.
So now they have lost money on Arena. How are they going forward? So they need to step up the price, go back to the original game, make it, so now every copy effectively is 2 copies previously, because 100 to 200.
Mhm.
Um, and so they're trying to play catch up because the game kind of fell short. And for me, it fell short because it was so intense. Like you know how we said we liked Tarkov and the PvP was good, but the PvP was intense. Well, this is like PvP only. There's no
Right.
sneaking around. It's just only PvP.
Yeah, classic
Yeah,
FPS,
yeah.
right?
And so it was very tough. And the progression was a little bit funny. Like the lower end people got really smashed because they were running around with bad shotguns, and the higher end people had good ammo with submachine guns, and everybody was complaining about it.
Yeah.
And I think that they just needed to balance it a little bit more. But the launch of it was awful. It wasn't received by the fans very well, and it's hard to recover from that. Like it's hard to recover from that.
Yeah.
So that's why I've been saying that we're getting closer to Squadron 42. And my hope is that they do release Squadron 42 on consoles as well, and it's just a freaking boomer of a game. It's like the cutscenes are good, the starships are good, the fighting's good, it's fun on console. You can have if they have crossplay, it'd be amazing. But if Squadron 42 comes out and has a positive debut, Star Citizen is going to be around for another 10 years. Easy. That's my prediction.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see where a flop on launch of the Squadron 42, which is, as people know, so if you're in the know, you've been around for a while, you know this. If you're new, this will be news to you. in that Squadron 42 was the promised first release. That was supposed to be the first game out. You played Squadron 42, and then you would then, when you finished, you would move into the persistent universe. We've had the persistent universe out first now, and now we're getting to the standalone game that I think is probably all of the hype has built up to. So to your point, I think is very or on your point, I think is very you're exactly right. It has to stand on its own for that point, but I think the other half of that is there's a huge amount of anticipation from everybody, myself included, that first got into this is waiting for the successor, the rightful heir to the Wing Commander throne.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
if it doesn't work, it's going to be it could potentially. I mean, this is I can't say potentially disastrous. Everything's potentially disastrous.
yeah.
I think it will be
Well,
disastrous.
I think Tarkov is
It'll
rebound.
tarnish them very bad.
Like they took the hit. They're down money. They lost money that last year. They spent a lot of money developing Arena, and it wasn't that popular. But they are rebounding because they
Yeah,
do have one of the most popular IPs.
yeah,
So who's to say? But I think that if we get a good release on Squadron 42, like it's going to be, it would be great for everybody.
yeah, yeah. Final note for me on Tarkov.
And
In
go,
no,
no, go
go
ahead
ahead.
with your final note on Tarkov. I got something else to add.
Okay, well, I was just gonna say that I always thought Tarkov. The reason I liked it so much is because I thought it was different. It wasn't a standard FPS. I liked the idea of creeping around. I liked the idea of being able of listening to the sounds to know where the broken glass under your foot,
Yeah,
all
yeah,
that. The ambient nature of it is what I thought the draw was. And to want to go out and make just a straight up FPS, going, dude, there's so many FPS games.
yeah.
Why would you even waste your time on
I
that? But
also I think that the scav system in Tarkov
yeah, it's
had never
great.
been seen before.
Yeah,
Right? You can
loved
you
it.
can add to your main account's inventory by spawning in as an NPC in someone else's raid. Nobody ever thought about this.
Yeah,
Like they're like, oh yeah, we got all these raids going on. Just let them spawn in as a some drunken,
it was it was fun.
funny hat
I
wearing
liked
guy,
it.
and that I think is originally when people are like, wow, this game's because you need something like
It was
that that's
different.
different.
Yep, I agree with you. I
But
agree
I was
with
going
you.
to make the note about Squadron 42 is that if it's good, then essentially RSI CGI they have two models. So Squadron 42 will be on the we sell a copy of a game to make money model, and then Star Citizen, the Precision Universe, will be we sell in-game assets to make money. So they'll kind of have a game in each area, and if they're both popular, then hopefully that's going to keep driving the engine.
Right. All right. So okay, we have that. So now I'm gonna throw a game out here
Okay,
that we've talked about. Um, the different methods of making income and every the three that we've talked about, three or four that we talked about, have some sort of recurring revenue piece to them, right?
sure.
So I'm going to throw the outlier here and get your thoughts on No Man's Sky that
Okay,
was a sales copy methodology. You bought it and that's it. I bought it on release and it was everybody knows. And if you don't know, check it out. It was a terrible release. It didn't
yeah.
live up to the hype. I don't know if I blame the studio for that or I blame uh not the studio because there was a lot of hype to it, and it didn't live up to it. It fell short in a lot of areas. They spent the next they've spent the next what 8 years, 9 years
Has it been that long? Gosh, you're old. It's so
rebuilding
crazy.
their reputation. I mean, they went from zero to hero. They released every single update has been for free. They've made it's a neat game if it's your thing. I like it on a lot of different levels. I'm more of a multiplayer at this point in my life. I like multiplayer. It's a lot of single player stuff. But how are they able to survive as long as they have selling one copy?
Well, see, this is funny because this is another IP that I came late to the game. Like I was wasn't having fun playing whatever games I was playing, and then one day I'm like, No Man's Sky, bought it, downloaded it, and I'm like, this game is so much fun. Like this game's awesome. Like why is there the best? So I never really knew why it had such a bad rep. So when I played it, it was already kind of polished.
Right.
It had a lot of fun. Like I think I did see Veritas, who was a Tarkov and a lot of other things. He was talking about playing No Man's Sky, and I'm like, no, that sounds. Well, check that out. Um, I don't know how it survived that dead period, right? Because there was always an internet presence. Like you'd always see some
Mhm.
people on YouTube talking about it, or people even making memes about how bad it was, and it still was relevant through its down period to then kind of come back in. So,
Well, it
did they
makes you
have any private investors come in? Did they
yeah, I don't
were
know.
they just
It makes you wonder if it did so poorly on launch that you had so many people going, "I wonder if they're gonna come around, and
wasn't it a
I wonder if
very
they could suck
small
more," and they
indie?
ended up actually doing
Was it a
pretty
smaller indie
good.
studio?
Yeah, Hello Games is pretty small.
Okay.
I
So
think a
maybe
fairly
it's
small
easier
studio.
for a smaller group of passionate guys to get through on a shoestring budget to
Maybe,
the end product
maybe.
than
I
like
don't know.
Amazon Studios or something.
Oh, yeah, maybe there was a
Yeah,
game we
right.
could bring up.
That's another, you could talk about monetization. And New World flopped, quote unquote, or
Mhm.
just had a lot of it didn't necessarily flop. It was lots of people logged in to play it, but the PvP was so buggy, it got stale real quick.
Well, the end game was
Yeah.
it was all a grind. It was everybody was in a rush to make it to level 50 or
60, I think, or
55 or
40.
whatever it was before you could actually get in the general raid part, and then and then
The ice
as
gauntlet broke
as
everything.
well as usual. Well, no, well, there's that, but I'm just saying then the usual game politics come into play, and everybody would line up. It was like out being out of schoolyard on a recess, and you're trying to get picked for a team. What level are you? What are you good? No, we don't want him. Yeah, you're too low. And I'm like, Jesus, I'm 55. No, 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 no. We don't take anybody below 58. So yeah, so that'd be another one we can talk about. So I guess that question is going to go unanswered. Maybe if anybody
Yeah, and
knows, they can
I don't
put it
really
in the
know. I
comments
don't.
down below.
We should
Where
do
did
some
all the
research and
money
look at
come
that.
from?
Yeah. And what about? So could we look? It was New World, but they had an expansion that you had to pay for. They did. They
Hmm.
did. So
Hmm.
does that also count? Where do we classify the ones that we're going to make a game? You can buy it, and then in 4 months we're going to put some DLC that you have to buy for half the price, and then is that still game copies, or is what would you classify that as?
Mm. Yeah, no, I think it's you've gone beyond game copy. You're now doing that's kind of it's DLC. I don't know if I'd say in-game asset, but it's definitely DLC. I
Yeah,
mean,
because it's more than an in-game asset.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So,
which yeah, and that's that. You coming back to Eve, like they had so much DLC that you would just get just for playing the game.
well,
You know,
it was a constant stream of income. Yes, I know that there were a lot of top end players, right, that played for free. That was by design, right? The
wait, which
develop
game are you talking about? Who played for free?
Eve,
Okay,
Eve, right? So CCP
yes
when
and
they
no though,
developed
but
Eve, they
that's
they
not
no, but they planned on their revenue model. They knew that they would have players that could do well enough in game that
right.
they could plex out and play for
Yeah.
free.
But see, that's
But
why it wasn't free to play. So hear me out. So let's say that you are a professional guy and you're plexing out, you're not paying anything, but I suck and I want to buy a bunch of Typhoons. Then I basically would just pay for your game subscription via Plex.
right,
So all the game subscriptions were still paid for. It just was like I might be paying for 5 people's game subscriptions. 4 other guys are plexing out free to play, but the amount of money coming in player for player for player was exactly $15.
or no,
And I
no,
thought that was a genius way to do it. It was
right,
genius.
right, and I don't, and you're right. But what I'm saying is that in their revenue model, they took into account that these top end players are going to get to a point to where they could play and not pay. And they took that into account to everybody else that would come in and play and how they would generate revenue from those people. But they had monthly income coming in, right? So there was constant income. I don't know what
Right. Okay.
switched
Right. Yeah.
when
And
they
they knew
decided to
that it was
go.
coming in
They
so
knew
they
it was
could come
coming.
to work. They're like, we know we have money next month. We know we
Exactly.
have money the next month. So we can focus on
Exactly.
a plan. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So different, a different way of um funding your game and controlling your player base.
Right.
because
Right.
everything changed when it went free to play.
Well, yeah, but because then yeah. I
Okay,
mean, it's
right.
slowly like
Like I said,
the
I don't want to
alpha
go
clone
too. I don't want
status.
to go. I don't want to go
See,
too deep
but
into
hang on,
Eve.
wait. Just because I'm an Eve buff, they didn't go alpha clone. They had you could buy Plex and Plex your account for probably 4 years before they went to the alpha clone setup, which
Right.
was after Pearl Abyss bought.
No, no,
Um,
no, 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 no. Free to play was before Pearl Abyss.
okay, well it was close, but you could Plex. There was no alpha clones, and you could still Plex your account.
Yeah,
And
I know,
that I thought was perfect. But then
I'm
the
talking.
alpha clone thing, I was like, nah, because
Yeah,
you didn't
I'm
have to have
talking the free to
any.
play.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Um,
yeah, and that is, maybe that's uh, trying to think that you're going to get people into, again, maybe leaning more towards hoping it's premium that you're going to bring people in, they're going to play for free, and then they're going to want
right.
to keep going. And I will say this firsthand experience. I know of at least half a dozen players that played with us in APOC that came through or that we played very other games and we got to know them when we talked about Eve because we were playing it, and they would start playing and they came in as alphas and got to playing and they were able to max their alphas and then plexed and they haven't paid a freaking penny. And we just talked to an we just talked to a guy that's what he did, and I don't know how many marshals he owns. He's got a couple
Oh,
marshals.
right.
So there's a way to do it. I'm not
But
saying that.
that was after the alpha came in. You could only do
Yeah,
that with the alpha. Yeah.
yeah. So
But
anyway,
I don't know
anyway,
if
I don't
see. I'm sad because like when you really look at like let's talk about that. Let's talk about Eve for a second.
I don't want to
Because
talk
no wait,
about
I
you
just
for a
want when
second.
you have an IP that is then bought by someone else,
Yes.
they want a return on their investment.
Yeah, but that's a
So the
completely
new owner wants a return on their investment, and that can classically is where you see more microtransactions coming in, more like,
yes.
well, let's try to sell a mining ship, even though it's never been done in the 14 years of the game.
Right.
And boy, that hurts. That hurts a
Well,
game.
I mean, again, we could do another hour on
Yeah, you're
Eve.
right. You're
The
yeah,
changes
you're
of
right. Yeah.
Eve, Pearl Abyss, the changes when they attempted they were going to sell a ship, a full ship for
Yeah.
cash.
The Tech One
It,
version of the
it,
Mackinac. I'm
it
trying to
yeah,
remember what the
it
name of it.
kept
It's the
it,
mining
it
ship.
yeah, it was completely against everything that they stood for. So we could talk a whole bunch about that. Maybe one of these days we will talk about it. Um, that's what I was alluding to in the very beginning about being bitter, right? There's
Right.
a lot of us that are bitter Eve vets. I have won Eve. How many times you've won Eve? I've won Eve at
Oh,
least 8 times.
yeah. I've been how
Yeah.
many times have been top of the kill board? But
Never. You've never been on top of the kill board.
I was the top
The t-
porpoise pilot for
that's
like
true. Oh,
three
that's true.
months.
Oh,
Okay,
bait
the
porpoise.
bait porpoise
Bait porpoise was
just wrecked.
awesome.
It wrecked, and I've got screenshots to prove it.
That's right.
I was also
And
the best.
and I hate to bring this up. This is our third episode. This is awfully earlier in our history. And I hate to bring it up, but maybe we'll get lucky, and maybe a couple of the players that used to play with us that ended up leaving, even though they secretly loved us,
Push them now.
and
Push them
and
now.
yeah, and you would talk
The
and
only ship you need is friendship, boys.
that's
The
right.
only ship you need is friendship.
They would regale in the stories of Bigga begging and pleading, and I think quote on his knees
Yes,
to
crying.
save a Fortizar. That's how dedicated this man is, folks.
Yes, I
He
will
loves
cry.
his
I will
friends,
cry
and
for in-game
he wanted
assets.
to save that station.
It's this eye's broken, but if I'm crying out of this
This
eye,
eye, yeah,
then it's real.
it's
Yeah,
real.
this
Okay,
one just is broken.
that's good. Okay, so let's move forward here, and let's talk real quick about.
I just I just want to say that you've never in our podcast career yelled "get him," so I appreciate that. To troll me, but
Detroit. I was gonna say because that's not
yeah,
my line. I wouldn't.
right, yeah, I'd be like, well, there he
Who used
goes.
to Who used to say that? What's the first thing you hear when you know that it's all gonna go to shit?
Your
Get
ship's
him!
about ready to be killed.
Get him! All right. So
Somebody's
let's
got to
move.
bang the war drum. Somebody has to.
Let's move this into the last piece here and tie this up. Star Citizen.
I can't wait till it's your Idris. I'll be like, get up, let's
That's
go,
right.
Just push the W key, Mikey. Let's go.
Star Citizen. So again, a game that is famous for its fundraising. We know how long it's been around. Uh, Started out being crowdfunded, Kickstarter, hit all of its uh, all the markers, and they were going to add all the stuff in. It's insane to even go over. Um, they after that they moved to asset sales. So, and that's probably one of the biggest. It's a piece that comes around more often than not that people complain about is if you're a hater, right? If you're really a
Right.
detractor of Star Citizen, usually the people that will bring up the most is the ship sales. Um, and I'm not disagreeing. There's some crazy ship sales that they've had in the past. It didn't make sense to me. It still doesn't make sense to me sometimes. Although I, I may or may not have a ship on order that is not available in game yet. I can neither confirm nor
I
deny
have
that. But
two.
for
I have
yeah,
two.
but for a lot of them, I mean, it was these are mine's not near as big as some of the big money ships. You know,
No, no.
thousands of dollars that were design only
But
haven't been
we're in the
rendered.
game. We're what are we, high admirals? What are we? Concierge level?
Uh,
Do
you're a
you know?
you're a concierge level. I got
Yeah,
to work
right.
on that
Oh,
since
come
we're
on. This is another
since
one of the way that we're
si-
privately competing.
I was gonna say, since we're one upping each other, I'm gonna have to
Yeah,
check that out.
yeah, yeah.
So they
Yeah.
moved asset sales, so ships. So how does this work? How does this work itself out? So let's say I don't
Wait,
know.
one.
s-
Okay, go ahead.
I was gonna say let's keep Star Citizen out of this, right? So we've got the
Okay.
persistent universe. So you've got this funding coming in, and you've
You
got
mean keep Squadron 42 out of it?
yeah. We're not talking about
Okay.
Squadron
Yeah.
42. We're talking
Okay. We're
about
talking about PU, PU, PU. Okay.
just PU.
Okay.
So and we've talked about this a little bit. How do you sustain a game that uh do you there's so many ships. Do you keep designing ships
Yeah.
to sell?
How?
How,
Yeah.
and how do you make those ships um we talked about it a little bit with modularity and some of
Right.
this stuff coming in. How do you keep a ship from becoming, the min-maxing meta uh um to me it becomes the terrible part of a game where everybody min-maxes and everybody all ships or weapons or guns or anything becomes irrelevant except for the alpha setup.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
a balance change comes
This
in
one laser
and
repeater is
then
the
it
best.
change
It's
yeah,
the
and then it
only one
changes.
people sell.
Yeah, they do a balance change and then it changes. And now
Yeah.
everybody shifts over that. It's no fun. I mean, because how
Yeah.
many we've played games a lot of times we're
Okay.
like we're not going to follow the meta, we're going to fight, we're going to use these ships and we go into battle and we get our asses kicked
I
and we're
have that
going
I still have trouble trying to go against the meta. I do.
yeah,
I do. Okay, so you got that's a lot of questions there. One is how many ships is too many ships, right?
yeah,
So how many ships are in the game right now? And I've seen somewhere 200, 250 or something like that. I'm
right.
pulling that out of the air because I read it somewhere. A lot of ships in the game, right? Would you say that there's enough ships in the game now that they could stop making ships?
Well, okay, that's a loaded question because
Well, no, I would say
of course
no.
the
No,
of
there are
course
not enough ships in the
of
game. They
course
need
there
to
is
keep
enough
making. Okay.
of course there is enough ships they could stop making ships.
So 200 is not that number. So
No,
that
hang
number
on.
is somewhere north of 200.
Hang on. No, they have enough ships they could stop making ships. But what would they benefit by doing so? They fe stopping making ships now, that's their biggest moneymaker.
Well, yeah,
So
yeah,
they're victims of their own success. They have to keep making ships.
yeah. Or selling the ships that they have, which is hard to do once the luster runs off. But they
W
still have a lot of assets that they can sell in game.
Yeah,
You
okay.
know, and because once the one of my favorites, the Liberator, wins that coming out. Once that actually comes out, the ship sales of that ship will probably go up.
Right.
Um, so now we're talking about two different things. Like it's kind of there's ships that are design concept, quote unquote, that they can sell, and ships that are in game that they can sell. So, yeah, oh man,
Yeah.
but this so this is different from Mech Warrior in the way that this is kind of a collection of whales. You know how they say like we've got the whales, like Star Trek Online is real. They love, oh, that guy's a whale. He owns all the stuff. He buys
Right.
all the keys. But they kind of market to whales, and so on a $20 a mech level, maybe it doesn't happen, but on a $300 to $750 a ship level, maybe it works a little better. Um, but I don't know how the longevity of that is going to be. I think eventually we're going to have to see a change in what they sell us. And I think, do you want me to go on theory crafting here? Like, is that going to be
No,
appropriate?
well,
Or,
no, but
um,
I guess but does the fear ever come in that um
yeah,
that
absolutely.
that having these other ships and people just can just buy in the ship that it gives them it gives them not so much a leg up because I think they've done a pretty good
No,
job. I've said
no.
this before in that what's really kind of fun so far about Star Citizen is that there's different ships have different strengths. And I
Yeah,
think they've done a nice job in kind of the way they've limited the loadouts, right, by gun size and some other stuff. So you don't find there's some min maxing, there's some better ships, quote unquote, but pilot skill I think is a valid discussion that comes up every once in a while that, a good pilot in a regular Star Citizen ship can do very well against a mediocre pilot in a very good ship,
yeah, yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Um, so I think they've done that well, but uh, it just I don't know I don't know what the next step it
Well,
to
I
that
think the
is.
fear is like they're going to run out of monetization, and then they're not going to finish because they have a long way to go, right? They
Okay.
have such a long way to go that can they keep making all these ships and making them interesting in a way that the whales keep buying them? Uh, well, I don't know. I don't know. You know, we're seeing a lot of change in the game now, and I think there's a lot of exciting stuff. And what I'm hoping is that we get so much of an influx of players and fun from the release of Squadron 42, which hopefully it's next year, um, that then all that money from Squadron 42 sales is going to be pushed back into, well, now let's complete some of these game loops in the Persistent universe so we can sell the Arastra, so we can sell the Pioneer, so we can
Right.
sell the Liberator. And that's going to bring in a lot more money there. um,
Yeah, I was gonna say that I think that the success of the persistent universe is now it's not gonna hinge on ships. I think that they can keep designing and selling
yeah,
ships. I think that that portion of the sales cycle is gonna start to flatten, and I think that the key pieces are gonna be the game loops and the reason to play the game. They've got to the in-game events help, and the lore helps, but there has to be a reason to play the
yeah.
game.
I think well, and yeah, and they have a lot of work on that.
A lot
Like,
of
there's not really an
storylines.
in
Yeah.
game, but it's not like we said. Oh, it's just it's just an alpha, which it kind of is. But I like let me put this to you. Like, so they've been seeing they've got their 800 player max. They've had the server mesh has been working about 300 players really well, up to 400 okay. So if we really can see some persistent servers with higher player levels, then whatever, because we say it's a buddy game, we love buddy ships, we love organizations, so they're going to
Mhm.
have to monetize on organization gameplay.
Yeah.
So, like, once you have 500 people on a server, you can have 100 of them in an org, you can have 75 of them in an org, you can have 200 in an org. They can all be fighting over whatever they want to be fighting over. And I think this is what I think they're going to sell, like organization, quote unquote, munitions packs or some kind of monetary pack that is organization funds. So I can buy $300 worth of organization munitions packs or funds, and I can donate it to the projectile dysfunction org. And then the org has all their guys put it in. They've got $8,000 worth of whatever. They can go out, buy their Idris, they can buy their Pioneer. We can now see, like he's already saying, that I can call your ships out of your persistent hangar when we're in a party. So the game mechanics are already going to come out when they finish the persistent hangars to have orgs have access to each other's ships. And then, like, if I get mad at you and I want to pull out, you should have a function that I get all my org munitions back. you guys get like a 24-hour timer to say, hey, you got to come up with these funds, you got to have more people come in, or you have to move some assets around in your org. And then I can go to, after 24-hour timer, I can go join another org and be, here's my 5. And if I want to turn that to 1,000, I can turn it to 1,000. And they can sell all those packs to other people. And then they can really utilize these big ships on the scale that they need to, because not everybody needs to own a Polaris or,
Well,
any of these big ships.
it does come across a bit ridiculous to have these beautifully built ships that are multi-crew and to have one person fly them all the time.
Yeah, yeah,
It just seems like a complete waste to
yeah.
me.
Yeah, what I think that, and if we're getting off track here, but to really look toward the M game, they can solve the death of a spaceman problem, which he's talked about so easily by, let's say you had to work to become a star citizen. Okay. And once you get enough in-game credit, in-game, support, you're a star citizen. So that guy can respawn and he doesn't die, but you have like 5 slots and you can have a bunch of different quote unquote characters that you buy and set up that are kind of like NPCs, but like this other character has some stats. And you can jump to those characters whenever you want. So I could have a guy that's got some gunnery stats and he's sleeping in one of the racks in your Idris, and I log in and I'm like, I'm looking at my main, I'm walking around my character. Well, I'm going to jump to one of my other star citizens, and that's and he wakes up in your bed on your ship because you're out flying it, and you're like, hey, I need a gunner, and I know I have an asset there. And then if your ship gets blown up, this guy's dead. I got to buy a new one and slot him in, and then I can grind his skill up. So we can still kill spacemen, but we have some continuity in our 1-star citizen that we had to grind. And then it's not that I take 45 minutes to get to wherever your Idris is at. I can just jump my citizens to just wake right up on your ship, and we can start playing in 10 minutes, because the buddy ship, Scott, has to be solved in the way that organizing a group to play on an Idris has to be faster than an hour. Like, you got to be like, we're all waking up. That's why we have all these cool racks. They're already talking about taking away bed logging. So beds can be where my buddies can log their alternate NPCs or whatever their controllable NPCs out, so they can just jump on and be my gunner or jump on and do whatever they want.
Right.
But I don't know. That's this. We're getting down.
Well, I think it's going to be important. Those are important mechanics, and I think long term for the game, the PU to survive, it's going to have some sort of story/event driven piece. Like, there has to be a reason to play. I don't see it yet. There's game loops that kind of get you through to grind, right? Because you're trying to get some ships and doing some of this other stuff. But then there's got to be a reason, and the story behind it, I think, is going to have to drive it.
Yeah. Well, I think so. I think group gameplay has to be smoothly made. It has to be quickly accessible, and then they have to monetize it.
Yeah.
And they've unlocked everything. If they could do those 3 things, make it funner, make it easier and faster, and then monetize group play, boom. Like, the game is going to be set for a long time.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. All right. So that was a great discussion. I think that monetization of games is a huge topic. There's lots of different games that we can talk about, and what's going to make them work. These are topics that we'll probably cover again down the road, or you're going to hear them from other groups talking about it too. It's just it's a big topic. The economies and the funding of these games, especially these big games like this, uh, is a hot topic, and I want to see it succeed. We're space game people. I love space games. I love space simulators. I want to see something like this succeed, and I'm really looking forward to it. Thanks, Bigga. Thanks for the
It's always a pleasure.
conversation.
It's always a lot of fun.
Thanks everybody for listening. I'm Cael Voltek. That
I'm
is
Bigga
Bigga
Moon
Moon
Pie.
Pie. And we'll see you next time. Have a great night.
Night night.